Hi, I'm Nikki Howarth. I'm a director at Harbour Family Law and head of the Clifton office. Today I've got with me Emma Gordon, who is also in the Clifton office with me, and Hannah Holdaway, who is in the Cleveland office. So we were having a chat about things that might be good to talk about on a podcast, and we've realised that over the last couple of years there has been an absolute explosion in AI. It feels sort of like a huge change that's really sort of taken off. And I don't know about you guys, but in my personal life, I never used to use AI. Now, if I'm planning a holiday, go to AI. You know, if I'm doing a Christmas quiz for the family, go to AI. It's like it's a real sort of part of what I would use in my personal life. And I was just having a little look actually, and I asked ChatGPT, who is my new best friend, how many what's the most popular app, or whether it in fact was the most popular app. And there were 46 million downloads in March alone, like in 1 month. And it basically, apart from gaming apps, it's the biggest thing being downloaded at the moment. So thought it would be interesting to talk about, obviously how we use it in our professional capacity. And what are the upsides and what are the downsides really?
I think it was a while ago, people were talking about how it could be really useful, kind of streamline things, make everything more efficient, make things cheaper for clients, and kind of using templates and generating documents, software that will draft consent orders for you. As things have evolved so quickly, I'm not sure that's necessarily how it's panning out.
No, I mean, I think that was probably the legal firm use of AI and how we were sort of generating documents in a quicker way, in a more efficient way. But certainly now, more and more, I feel like I'm spotting letters and emails from clients and others that have potentially been run through an AI generator, even statements on the occasional case, where you can see those telltale signs of it having been copied and pasted from something that's been generated. So it's definitely much more mainstream. I think, as you've already alluded to, Nikki, it's being accessed daily by so many more people, habitually even. So it's good to be aware of what it can and can't do, and how people are using it, with perhaps a note of caution on how not to use it potentially. So it's definitely something that's a lot more on the radar for sure.
And there is the argument of that clients could say, well, I can use AI, whether that's ChatGPT or something else, in order to, do my legal research, find out what the processes are and what I need to do. So why do I need to instruct a lawyer at all in the first place? I don't know what you guys think about that.
Well, it does have limitations, doesn't it? Because so much of what we do in our work is not just about knowing what the law is, but it's knowing how that fits with a specific client or a specific family or a set of circumstances. There's so much experience involved in knowing how to apply the law in a given situation. And AI doesn't know anything about you apart from what you tell it.
No, I mean, I think it's worth remembering what AI is. It doesn't know anything. It doesn't have knowledge. It's a computer program that uses patterns that it's been taught during its sort of development, where based on what you ask, what you type into it, it generates or predicts what it sees in the patterns of the text that it's seen before, what it thinks is the most likely, most useful response. There's no analysis, there's no application, and it's not even looking at the internet to see who's answered this question before. It's just giving you a prediction based on the text that it's seen in the past, which may not be from this country, may not be current, may not be relevant. And it's also, it's also trained to be convincing. So
trained to talk like a human.
Trained to talk like a human.
And interact with you.
Yes, but a very confident human.
Absolutely, yeah.
It can be quite convincing, can't it? It's sounding like a human, but a very convincing, confident human. And that's quite funny when you get answers back that are obviously wrong, and you can spot sort of
glaring errors.
Yeah, glaring errors.
Yeah.
But that's not really the problem. The problem is the the small or subtle errors that you don't spot because you don't know what you don't know, and you don't know the intricacies of the process or the legal principles or how that bit of nuance might apply to your case. And actually, depending on what you're using it for, or how you're using it, or the prompts you're putting in, that could kind of derail you if you're getting a subtle error that you can't spot. And I think the issue for clients is, how do you know that you can be confident that you're spotting something?
And the answer is, if you're not a lawyer, you won't know. You won't know if the answer is wrong. You won't know whether actually they're giving you the answer of what the law in Scotland might be, which is very different, or they're talking about another country, or as Emma said, they're talking about a law that's out of date. And that happens. And I found when you're just sort of testing these things, I've asked different questions in slightly different ways and you get completely different answers, which just shows. I also did another test the other day where I asked, this was within not ChatGPT, but within our sort of own AI program that we use at work. And I asked the AI to summarize a particular document, and I asked it to summarize it, and I didn't like it. I felt it hadn't summarized it properly and there were lots of things missing. So I asked it to summarize it again and it highlighted different bits. And then I asked it to summarize a third time and then I got a third answer, which was just like, I think next time I won't bother using that. It wasn't that helpful. And that just goes to show how it is literally just picking stuff out, and it's going to decide on each time it does it, what is the most relevant thing, and what's the sort of the most useful thing and stuff.
I think there's an important point there as well, though, the difference between open AI systems that, like ChatGPT, that someone might be able to download, that anyone can use, and the sort of closed AI systems that we might be using within our law firm in a legal context, which are different products. It's different software.
But probably both have limitations.
They both definitely have limitations.
Yeah.
And how much skill there is involved in using any of them properly.
Well, when we were having a think about what we were going to talk about, I actually programmed into ChatGPT because I thought it would be interesting to see what it said. And I asked ChatGPT the question, is AI good for providing family law advice? And the answer that was given was, AI can be helpful in family law, but only in certain circumstances, and it should never replace a qualified lawyer when real legal rights, court orders and safety are involved. It is a tool, not an authority, which I thought was quite interesting. And then I also asked, is ChatGPT always right? Because obviously the answer would be no. And the answer was, the honest answer is ChatGPT is not always right, and it can sound confident even when incorrect and give outdated information. So I think we've kind of heard it from the horse's mouth.
Talking about it.
It is. It's picked up on what we've been saying.
I mean, you said earlier, Nikki, about how if you're not a lawyer, you probably don't know whether it's right or not. But I think there are some examples now more widely reported about even the lawyers being caught out by it. So.
And there was that awful, there were headlines, weren't there, on a case, and I think the headline was, Judge slams appalling misbehaviour of barrister who invented 5 supporting cases.
Oh, gosh.
So I don't know whether you want to tell us a bit about that one now.
Yeah, it's a bit of a toe curler of a case report, unfortunately, but that was a not particularly standout case, but one which has been made an example of because the barrister in that case went along to court with 5 cases to support their argument, all of which had been generated presumably by AI, although that wasn't necessarily proved in that case, but the cases didn't exist. They were completely made up. They sounded good and they supported the arguments, but they were not real. Yeah. And, going along and offering up authority to a court that doesn't exist is perjury. It's something which is against professional conduct. It's something which has caught out others as well. And so even those who should know better have, unfortunately, seen the risky side of going along with something and not checking the source.
And somebody acting in person. I mean, that's something that happened to a barrister who has all the access to all the legal reports and is able to properly research things. If you're an individual and you are representing yourself, it'd be very easy just to, ask an AI or ask AI, well, what's the answer to this, or what cases support what I'm saying? And they could very easily end up with very fake information. And it's serious, because essentially if you go before a court and you say, you should find in my favour, and there is this case, and this case that supports me, if those cases don't exist, you're misleading the court, and that's really serious. That's not something that you're allowed to do. Even if it's an unintentional misleading, you're still misleading the court.
Yes, and it doesn't seem like the courts are showing any kind of leniency to litigants in person who could so easily fall into those kind of traps. They're not getting any special treatment, are they? They're expected to present a case just as accurately as a lawyer would be.
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's no accountability with AI either, is there? Because if you went to a lawyer and they presented fake case law or did something negligent in your case, you'd have some kind of redress. You'd be able to make a claim against that lawyer. You'd have some kind of damages or something.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's nothing like that with AI. The regulation around it is always kind of a step behind developing.
Absolutely.
And so actually it's quite a big issue for people, because you're using it potentially for something that is about your children's well-being or all of your assets, big, important things in your life. And if you don't know that there's any kind of safety net, that's potentially a really big risk. It's a lot to put your trust in something.
Absolutely. I have to say, I think we're very much saying it shouldn't replace lawyers. Maybe we would say that as three lawyers sat around talking about it. But I think it can be useful for clients, because I have found that clients have often maybe done a bit more research before they come in, and therefore they feel like they have the sort of a very broad understanding of how the system and the processes work. And I think that can be really helpful then for getting advice from us, because what we're telling them, we're giving them the detail, but it's against a background that they're vaguely familiar with. So it's not everything new. It's not sort of information overload in that initial appointment. So I think actually, clients doing a bit of research and having a look online and at ChatGPT and asking questions can actually be quite helpful. Just not as a substitute for a lawyer, but as a kind of an additional wing.
Yes, and to get more out of your money. You're paying absolutely. A lot for a lawyer's time, so to be positive about it for a minute.
Yes, I think it has definitely got some benefits. But I think one of the things we were also saying is, if you're not a lawyer, do you know what questions to ask AI? Do you know, for example, you might need to instruct a tax expert in your case, or a surveyor to value a property, or an accountant to value the business, or a pension expert to look at the pensions. You'd have to really ask specific questions about that to get those answers. And I guess it's almost like if you don't know what you need, how do you know what to ask?
I think that goes back to Hannah's original point, doesn't it, where you don't know what you don't know.
Absolutely.
And the kind of the bit that's missing potentially with an AI generated anything is, how does that apply to me? How does this situation or this information or this case or this precedent, how will that be applied to me in my case and my circumstances? Because every single one will be different. And I think that sort of what we see in what we do day to day is that will never be replicated. Well, I don't think it will.
We also see that the cases that are reported are not like the cases we're seeing every day, are they? No, we don't get many Russian billionaires. That's true. And so actually it's a really good point that local cases that are heard by district judges in courts up and down the country every single day are not routinely reported. They won't be publicly available. And those are the decisions that are being made about, our clients and their families. And so having that real application is, I
I think where the value is and where the risk is of not doing it properly.
Probably between us, we've got, I don't know, maybe 50 years experience, something along those lines.
That's fine.
Which is frightening to put it that way. But we have all done so many cases that obviously are unreported, and we know what the outcome in those cases were. And that's the sort of knowledge that doesn't exist on the internet. That's just from doing a job for a really long time. You sort of become attuned to knowing, roughly what the right answer is, or roughly what the sort of outcome is going to be in each and every case. And there is you can't replace a human. You can't replace that human touch, the compassion that hopefully we give our clients, the sympathy, and the, cup of tea and a biscuit if that's what's needed on a particular day.
And the reassuring word at the right moment.
Absolutely.
All of that experience.
The phone call when they're, from the wife, when the husband's just said something awful to them and they're feeling really vulnerable, and they phone you up and you can just say, don't worry about it. That's utter rubbish what they've just said, whatever it might be. I don't think AI is going to provide that reassurance.
No, not.
But I think it is a watch this space topic, isn't it? Because, I don't know. I never would have thought 20 years ago that AI would be like it is now and would be so influential and such a big part of our lives.
Or even 5 years ago.
So just imagine in another 10, 15 years what it could look like. And, maybe there will be the compassionate robot making the cup of tea and giving a pat and, and truly replacing us. Who knows? Yeah. So I think probably we'd conclude that AI is absolutely not a substitute for legal advice. You don't necessarily know the questions to ask, and as AI says itself, it's not necessarily to be relied upon. You can ask it a specific question and it may give you the correct answer. It might not, and you might not know the questions to ask.
No, I mean, it can be a really useful tool, and it might be a really useful thing to be able to refer to or start with or use at various junctures. If, writing or describing things is not your skill set, it could be helpful with that kind of task. But it's probably not going to be your start, middle and end point for what you need to deal with when you're going through a process like this. So it will help, and it does help, but it's not necessarily the final answer. So beware.
Absolutely. And it's great for family Christmas quizzes. So, that's always good to know.
Top tip.
So if you'd like any more information about our AI podcast, which we hope you've enjoyed, then please do get in touch with us at Harbour Family Law. All the information's on our website. So, do look us up or do give any one of us a ring.